Charles Frederick Peace entered the world on May 14, 1832, in Darnall, Sheffield, as the youngest offspring of John Peace, a shoemaker, and Jane, the daughter of a naval surgeon. His educational journey took him through schools in Pittsmore Dinnington and Paradise Square, followed by an apprenticeship at Mill Sands in Sheffield. Unfortunately, at the tender age of 14, a mishap at a steel rolling mill left him permanently disabled. By 1854, Peace found himself convicted of numerous burglaries, resulting in a 4-year sentence of penal servitude. By 1859, he tied the knot with a widow named Hannah Ward. Shortly after, he committed a significant burglary in Manchester, where he nearly took the life of a police officer during his apprehension, leading to a 6-year term of penal servitude. Following these events, Peace turned his attention to his picture-framing enterprise for a time. However, he later joined the Northeastern Railway, only to be dismissed due to frequent absence. Returning to his roots in the Sheffield suburb of Darnall, he crossed paths with Dyson, a civil engineer, initiating a new chapter in his tumultuous life. In the midnight hours of August 1, 1876, at Whalley Range, Manchester, 2 policemen spotted Charles Frederick Peace entering the premises of a residence. PC Nicholas Cock attempted to intercept him as he sought to flee. However, Peace brandished his revolver, cautioning Cock to keep his distance. Undeterred, the policeman advanced. Peace discharged his firearm, intentionally missing Cock. Yet Cock persisted, drawing his truncheon, prompting Peace to fire once more, gravely injuring Cock, who succumbed to his wounds on August 2nd. In the ensuing darkness, Peace managed to evade capture. Nearby residents, John and William Habron, found themselves mistakenly implicated in Constable Cock's killing. While John Habron was acquitted due to insufficient evidence during the trial at Manchester Assizes, William Habron faced a harsher fate, initially sentenced to death, later commuted to life imprisonment. Peace, keen to disassociate himself from any suspicion, attended the trial before retreating to Darnall. Meanwhile, Peace's growing fixation on Dyson's wife intensified, although the extent of her reciprocal feelings remained unclear. In June of 1876, Dyson conveyed his displeasure by tossing a card into Peace's garden, bearing the message, "Charles Peace is requested not to interfere with my family." On July 1st, Peace confronted Mrs. Dyson, issuing threats against both her and her husband. In response, Dyson initiated legal actions against Peace and relocated to Banner Cross, a different suburb. However, on their inaugural day in their new home on November 29th, Mrs. Dyson encountered Peace once more, who brazenly declared, "You see, I am here to annoy you, and I'll annoy you wherever you go." Later that evening, just after 8 o'clock, Peace spied Mrs. Dyson exiting her back door and entering an adjacent outhouse. Seizing the opportunity, he accosted her upon her return, brandishing a revolver and demanding her compliance under threat of violence. Terrified, she sought refuge in the outhouse, prompting Dyson to investigate. Peace fled down the passage, with Dyson in pursuit. 2 shots rang out, the second proving fatal as it pierced Dyson's temple. Amidst Mrs. Dyson's cries for help, Peace made his escape, boarding a train bound for Hull, where his wife managed an eating house. An immediate uproar ensued, accompanied by a 100-pound bounty placed on Peace's head. Initially, the police circulated an inaccurate description of him, necessitating subsequent amendments. Peace, meanwhile, adopted various disguises, including a prosthetic arm to conceal his missing finger, and continuously relocated across the country in an attempt to evade capture. In Nottingham, he encountered Mrs. Sue Thompson, who became his mistress, but ultimately disclosed his whereabouts to the authorities, though she was denied the 100-pound reward as her information didn't directly lead to Peace's conviction. By early 1877, they relocated to London, where Peace believed he was less likely to be apprehended. He summoned his wife and son, Willie, to join him in Peckham. One of Peace's favorite areas for criminal activities was the affluent suburb of Blackheath, where a surge in burglaries caused widespread concern. It was in this locality that Peace's luck finally ran out. In the early hours of October 10th, 1878, Constable Robinson observed a sudden illumination within a house on St. John's Park. Accompanied by 2 colleagues, he approached the property and rang the doorbell. Peace attempted to flee through the garden, firing 4 shots at Robinson in the process. Despite sustaining an injury from a 5th shot passing through his arm, Robinson managed to apprehend Peace. Remanded for a week, Peace adamantly refused to divulge his identity. However, during his confinement, he penned a letter to a business acquaintance who opted to cooperate with authorities. This colleague disclosed Peace's true identity, revealing him as the author using the alias John Ward. Thus, under this pseudonym, Peace faced trial at the Old Bailey on charges of burglary and the attempted murder of P.C. Robinson. The evidence against him was compelling, leading Justice Hawkins to impose a sentence of penal servitude for life. Transferred from Pentonville Prison, where he was serving his initial sentence, Peace was brought to Sheffield to appear before the magistrate at the town hall, where he was formally accused of Dyson's murder. Mrs. Dyson's cross-examination was postponed to a later hearing, prompting Peace's return to London to await the subsequent proceedings. However, the hearing was delayed for an additional 8 days due to an incident during Peace's transportation. En route back to Sheffield, he either attempted to jump from the train near Kivton Park and was discovered unconscious beside the tracks, or he made the attempt but was restrained by a warden, depending on the account. Once deemed fit to stand trial, Peace underwent his second examination before the magistrate. His solicitor, William Clegg, endeavored to establish that Mrs. Dyson had a more intimate relationship with Peace than she admitted, and that Dyson had initiated a confrontation in which Peace acted in self-defense. Penciled notes discovered near the crime scene, purportedly written by Mrs. Dyson, suggested a close bond with Peace, though she denied their authenticity. During the coroner's inquest following the murder, she claimed her husband had deemed them forgeries, possibly by Peace himself. Following the proceedings, Peace was committed for trial at the Leeds Assizes, scheduled to commence on February 4, 1879. Mr. Campbell Foster led the prosecution, while future Solicitor General Frank Lockwood led the defense. Once again, Mrs. Dyson refuted the suggestion that her husband had assaulted Peace. As she stood as the sole witness to the shooting, there was no one to dispute her account. However, she did concede that she and Peace had been seen together on several occasions, and her husband had voiced his objections to their friendship. Various other witnesses claimed to have spotted Peace in the vicinity on the night of the murder. A laborer named Brassington testified that Peace had confronted him on the street, threatening to shoot those strange folks before morning, before heading towards Dyson's residence. Although Brassington was unfamiliar with Peace, he had encountered him under sufficient lighting and confidently identified him. Furthermore, the revolver confiscated from Peace upon his arrest was presented, and it was demonstrated that the rifling of the bullet recovered from Dyson's head matched that of the bullet fired from the revolver. During his summation, Mr. Justice Lopez emphasized that no evidence supported the notion of a struggle preceding the murder. He underscored the jury's obligation to fulfill their duty to society as per their sworn oath. Just 10 minutes after deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict of guilt. When asked if he wished to speak, Peace allegedly remarked, "It is no use my saying anything." As a result, the judge pronounced the death sentence, scheduled to be carried out at Armley Jail on February 25th. With nothing left to lose, Peace opted for a full confession regarding the murder of Constable Cock, aiming to absolve William Habron of any involvement. Consequently, Habron received a full pardon and £800 in compensation. Peace maintained his assertion that Mrs. Dyson had been his lover, a claim vehemently denied by her. She portrayed him as a demonic figure, accusing him of relentless harassment. According to Peace, he was a spurned lover, embittered by Mrs. Dyson's perceived ingratitude. On the eve of his execution, Peace bid farewell to his family for the final time. Out of respect for their feelings, he refrained from requesting a visit from Mrs. Thompson, despite his strong desire to see her. Despite the circumstances, he appeared composed and spent time in prayer with his family, blessing each member individually before they departed, tears welling in his eyes. On the day of his execution, Peace consumed a hearty breakfast of eggs and salty bacon before calmly awaiting the arrival of the public executioner, William Marwood, credited with inventing the long drop method. Following his execution, Peace was laid to rest within the confines of Armley Jail at the age of 46. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button to join our community. We upload every Monday and Thursday at 4 p.m. For more content like this, be sure to check out our other videos on the channel. You can also follow us on our other social media platforms for uploads and updates. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.